We're in Taiwan, an island long proud to call itself independent, but over which China claims sovereignty. This conflict has been among the gravest security threats in Southeast Asia since the Second World War. Relations between the capital, Taipei, and Beijing have improved, thanks to a new president. Taiwan is also keen to cement a trade agreement with the European Union to avoid economic annexation by China. Taiwan also has tensions with Japan. Here's an exclusive interview with Taiwanese President Ma Ying-jeou.
Welcome to Euronews.
Thank you.
Taiwan is a major trade partner for the EU, but negotiations on a free trade agreement have not yet started. How important is this agreement for Taiwan?
The objective of negotiating with the European Union to sign a free trade agreement or economic cooperation agreement is primarily for the benefit of both parties, because our two-way trade last year reached $48 billion. The EU is the largest source of investment in Taiwan, having invested over $32 billion.
The EU is making progress on free trade agreements with several of your competitors in Asia. Negotiations have been concluded with South Korea, with Singapore, are ongoing with Japan. How afraid are you that Taiwan will be left behind?
South Korea and the EU signed a free trade agreement 2 years ago. South Korea is our major trade competitor in global markets. Thus, this poses a considerable threat to our country. Similarly, the free trade agreement signed by South Korea and the US, that took effect last year, has already had a marked effect on exports of our products to the US. We have already fallen behind, so should catch up as soon as possible.
What do you think will be the principal benefits to the EU of this agreement?
According to research by a think tank in Denmark, if Taiwan and the EU sign an economic cooperation agreement, Taiwan could expect its exports to the EU to grow by 10 billion euros. For Europe, over the next 2 to 5 years, the increase could be 12 billion euros. As Taiwan is at the center of East Asia, many countries could use such an agreement after it is signed to bolster their trade with mainland China and Europe.
Under your leadership, the economic relation between China and Taiwan becomes stronger. China and Taiwan move much closer, but too close?
I believe that our relationship with mainland China is developing normally, as it has already been Taiwan's largest trade partner for 10 years. Over the past decade, we have wanted cross-straits trade to grow, but we have also hoped that its share in our total trade would not increase too quickly. Since I took office 5 years ago, cross-straits trade with China has expanded to $160 billion per year, which, however, has not accounted for a larger percentage of our total trade because our trade with other countries has increased.
One of the fear in Europe is that some of your markets are still a little bit close to European companies. How much are you ready to open your markets to the European companies, especially, for instance, in the service sector?
As for the service sector, the economic cooperation agreements we have signed with New Zealand and are about to sign with Singapore do cover services. After these agreements are concluded, import tariffs for 85% of products will be reduced to zero. Therefore, if we sign an economic cooperation agreement with the European Union in the future, its content will probably be very similar.
How much could the free trade agreement help Taiwan to improve, to develop its international space, international position?
Over the past 60 years, due to international political pressure, we have been rather isolated. However, Taiwan is a very important trading nation. Taiwan's imports and exports rank 17th or 18th globally. This fact cannot be overlooked. So, when we sign economic cooperation agreements with other countries, our international room for maneuver naturally increases. Of course, we do not rely solely on trade and investment. On the international stage, we aim to play the role of peacemaker and provider of humanitarian aid, so as to demonstrate that the Republic of China, Taiwan, is an asset to the international community, not a liability.
One of the main threats in this region, in this moment, is the territorial dispute over the Diaoyutai Islands. There are unpopulated islands rich of oil and gas that are claimed by Japan, by China, and Taiwan. So you promoted an East China Sea peace initiative, but after the tension of this summer, do you still believe it is possible to share these resources?
The Diaoyutai Islands are an inherent part of the sovereign territory of the Republic of China and appertain to Taiwan. This issue has caused friction with Japan for the past 40-some years. In April of this year, Taiwan signed a fisheries agreement with Japan, reaching a temporary solution with regard to fishery issues. Even though the sovereignty dispute has not yet been resolved, our position is that while sovereignty cannot be divided, resources can be shared. By first resolving the resources issue, we disarm the overall dispute. When the time is right, we will deal with the sovereignty dispute.
How much did you model this plan on some other European example?
Concerning this issue, we have always referenced the way Europeans resolved contention over North Sea oil. I believe that this precedent has important implications for many areas where there are resource disputes. But whether we will reach a similar resolution depends on whether neighboring countries have the determination and willingness.
In your proposal, at the end, the question of the sovereignty is still unsolved. What could be the political solution? Who should administrate these islands?
A final resolution on issues like this is necessarily a political one. But in the process of reaching a political solution, it is sometimes possible to allow for joint development of resources as a means to smooth the way to a political settlement. The islands involve Japan, mainland China, and the Republic of China, Taiwan. We are looking for a comprehensive settlement for this issue, but in the short term, as we await such a settlement, we have resolved the issue of fishing rights with Japan, which increases the chance of settling the regional dispute. I believe that it is also beneficial to peace in the region as a whole.
Thank you to President Ma, President of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for being on Euronews.
谢谢。